so much. Thank you to the Alumni Association for honoring Mark with this award. Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, Amanda, who can't be here today. Tell her I'm sorry not to have met her. And thank you to Father Griffin for inspiring the award in the first place. Mark and Father Griffin did overlap at Notre Dame for a couple of years. As far as I know, they didn't know each other, although I think they would have liked each other, but Griff was probably in the library and Mark was probably in the huddle. So it explains why they didn't meet. It's especially nice that you honor Mark with a writing award because writing was really hard for him. Talking, as Dolly and others of you who may have known him, was always really easy, but putting those thoughts onto paper was sometimes sheer agony. Mark really had two careers, first in politics and then in journalism. He started his political career as a legislative assistant to Senator Proxmire of Wisconsin. And one of his assignments as Proxmire's assistant was to write a daily floor speech on why the Genocide Convention should be ratified. Daily, that means every day. The best days were when the Senate was out of session, I can assure you. Anyway, after a couple of years of this, they didn't, by the way, ratify the Genocide Convention until 1988, so that was 20 years after Mark left. Mark left the senator's office to join Robert Kennedy's presidential campaign, and that was followed by about 15 years of running campaigns all over the country at all different levels, some winning, some losing. He once said he held the indoor record for the most concession speeches written and delivered. When he came to the realization that politics was a young man's business, which happened during the end of Ronald Reagan's campaign for the presidency in 1980, he wrote an op-ed page piece in the Post predicting that Reagan would win, which was, of course, heresy for a Democrat to say that. As a result, he was offered a place on the Post's editorial board, which he accepted readily, and then that led to the syndicated column, which Dolly referenced, which he wrote for 40 years. Each of these columns was 700 words, and if you give him a couple of weeks off for vacation, I count that as about 2,000 columns, which in my math works out to about 1.5 million words, which is a lot of writing. I once said to him, after one of these many midnight deadlines, why didn't he just concentrate on what came easy to him, the speaking, and give up the column? And he said, no. He said, I wouldn't know what I thought if I didn't write it down. Many of those columns were combined in a book that Dolly referenced, and I happen to have a copy if anybody wants one. It's on the campaign trail. He had several themes that he visited over and over in his writing. He felt strongly that the country should have a draft or national service of some sort. He thought his 2 years that he spent in the Marine Corps had been an invaluable life lesson for him, where he lived with and took orders from people that he would not have met in any other way or gotten to appreciate in any other way. He wrote about politics and politicians because he loved them both. He respected people who had the courage to run for public office and the courage to admit that they had been defeated. At least some of them admit that they'd been defeated. He believed that the art of politics was the art of addition, not subtraction, and he never referred to his opponent as the enemy. He knew only too well that he might need them on his side tomorrow. He abhorred hypocrisy and devoted many words to those who found guilty of that particular sin. And he loved writing about the accomplishments of government. He believed in the politics that wrote the GI Bill, that passed the Marshall Plan to rebuild a war-devastated Europe, that saved the Great Lakes, that built the interstate highway system, and that through Social Security took want and terror out of old age. He contributed to a book of essays called This I Believe, where he extolled the politics that can help to make ours a world where the powerful are more just and the poor are more secure. He loved Notre Dame, and he credited it, along with his parents, of imparting to him the values that he tried to live by. He watched all Notre Dame sports all of his life, and he became especially enamored of the girls' basketball team. He was always in favor of admitting women to Notre Dame. He knew it would improve the grade point average. What he didn't realize was that it would also improve the sports. After Mark died almost 3 years ago, I offered his papers to Notre Dame, and they eagerly accepted, not knowing what a challenge it would be to organize this mess that was his office on the 3rd floor of our house. When the archivist came to assess the situation, he was most excited about finding hundreds of these reporters' notebooks, these spiral notebooks about this long that were all carefully dated, that had all of Mark's thoughts, conversations, column ideas, to-do lists, reminder to pick up the cleaning on the way home, the list of groceries that I'd given him to pick up on his way. Mark, always conscientious, once actually went to the manager of our local Safeway to ask him what kind of pots he thought his wife wanted him to buy. And the manager wisely said that he thought she meant potatoes. When I asked the archivist what possible use these stream of consciousness jottings could be to anyone at Notre Dame, he said that when a future grad student was researching a particular election, for instance, it would be invaluable for him to be able to go back to this notebook, carefully dated, and know what Mark was thinking or writing about at the time. So I just want to say to that future research assistants, I don't need any pots. Mark made hundreds of speeches during his career to college students on college campuses, to trade associations, to union halls, to corporate roundtables, and he told them all the same thing. Every one of us has been warmed by fires we did not build, and every one of us has drunk from wells we did not dig. We owe a debt to those who came before us, and we pay that debt to those who come after. From what I've read of Father Griffin, I think he would agree with that sentiment. Thank you again for honoring Mark with this award.